So, I think I have to speak in English tonight, because it was announced that Father Konstantinos is going to speak in English, as was Father Stavros Kofinas going to speak in English. But unfortunately, Father Stavros Kofinas lost his mother. His mother died, she was 104. She lived in the USA, and he had to travel there and to remain for quite some time in order to arrange a lot of family business. And therefore we thank very much Father Konstantinos that at last he was ready to deliver a lecture here in the framework of Orthodox Logos. Father Konstantinos was a clergyman of our metropolis. He is born in Thessaloniki. He was ordained a deacon by His Holiness the Ecumenical Patriarch in Constantinople, and a priest by my predecessor, the late Metropolitan Panteleimon of Belgium. We were for some time together at the Faculty of Theology at the University of Thessaloniki, of which he graduated. And then he studied also in Strasbourg. He came for a time here in Brussels. I remember that he was looking for a room, and I helped him to find a room as a student to stay here, and we shared some time. And he holds a PhD, a doctorate, from the University of Thessaloniki in adolescence and family pastoral counseling. And since then he was teaching at the Theological Institute of Thessaloniki, and later on he became the director of the Orthodox Academy in Crete, the famous academy today, because it's there that the Holy Orthodox Council in 2016 took place. But at that time he already had left the academy, and he came to serve here the metropolis in 2013, and here in the metropolis he got the place as the director of the Institute of Orthodox Theology, Apostle Paul, the French-spoken part of the institute. And he is also a spiritual father of our metropolis, and serving as the dean of the parish of Saint Maximus the Confessor in Gorinchem. In the Netherlands they call it Gorinchem, where he goes once a month. It's near between Breda and Utrecht. And also he travels from one parish to the other, where I sent him in order to serve there in different capacities. So we are very glad that tonight he is going to present us a lecture on the very theme of communication in the framework of the family, as this is one of his competences, to be a specialist in family pastoral care. So, Father Konstantinos, we are glad to give you the floor.
Thank you, Your Eminence, for this opportunity to give the opportunity to talk about this important issue of our times. So, Your Eminence, dear fathers, brothers and sisters in Christ, and those who are following through the internet, communication in interpersonal relations in family is a theme that I used to talk even when I was a student in my doctoral thesis in Strasbourg. And seems that things didn't get any better since. And I will try to present to you some main principles and loyalties, because it's impossible to develop the whole subject in a few minutes. So I will try to present to you the main principles of communication, and also some characteristics of the functioning of the contemporary family, always through the theory of systems. Because we say communication in contemporary family, of course, it will take a very long time to describe different forms and types of family today, because we have the nuclear family, that means father, mother, and the children. We have sometimes three-generational family, which is quite limited with the presence of the grandparents, but also we have a monoparental family, single mothers, single fathers, or recomposed families with a second marriage or third marriage, or we have so-called families with no marriage, in people living together, cohabitation, or free relations, or even families of the weekend, as we say. People are working in different places and they just meet for the weekend as a family with children. And so it's quite difficult to define a single pattern of family, but the realities are there, and the communication is a very important factor of the well-being of the family. And before I start, I would like to say a few words about, His Eminence said that I studied pastoral psychology, is theology and psychology, and many people, they're wondering how these two domains are connected, which is their relation. First of all, to say that psychology belongs to the so-called human sciences. The human sciences are created by humans to serve the humans, and they are limited by their nature. So the nature of humans, so very limited, very relative also, the conclusions. That means that the measure of everything, as Aristotle said, is man, with his limited capacities. And human sciences, they cannot talk and give solutions to existential problems and issues of people, and they have no theology and not metaphysics. So, for the other hand, theology has theology, metaphysics, and of course the anthropological prototype of theology is Christ as perfect man, God-man, and this is our prototype in theology and in Orthodox Church. So the anthropological model in science, human sciences is man, in theology is Christ as a perfect man. So people respect these anthropological boundaries and the capacities of each part, then we can have a very nice and creative cooperation between sciences and theology. So first I will give you some, as I said, basic loyalties about communication. Aristotle said that man is kinoniko, is related with the other, he needs to communicate, but what is communication? If you look in a dictionary, communication is to respond to the needs of the other. When the two parts respond one the other, their needs. But could we identify the needs of the other? Are we unable to identify the needs and to respond to the other from both sides? Also, in Orthodox theology, we have the dimension of being as a person. What means being as a person versus being as an individual? And we will talk a lot today about individualism and not being as a person. And for the other hand, we have all these theologians that talk about the theology of the person, being in communion with each other. So why we have dysfunctions in our communication. So first of all, to say that there is no communication. It's impossible to have no communication. We have verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Verbal communication is the 30% largely of communication and is limited to the, as we say, to the digital message. When we express ourselves with words like, please close the door. This is a message, digital message, as we say, this is very clear, close the door. But this is only the 30% of communication. The 70% is the non-verbal communication. The non-verbal communication is the motions and the gestures and the disposition that is behind the words. We would say, could you please close the door? We would say, close the door. We would say, close the door. You know, it's the same digital message with different, as we say in psychology, analog message. So for us to understand a message, we need to see through the words, which are the emotions behind the words, to identify, to interpret the emotions, the gestures, because I can sit here without saying anything, but doesn't mean I cannot communicate with you. Even sitting here with no words, I can communicate very strongly with you. So how we stand, how we present ourselves, how we are, our clothes, our hair, our expressions, our gestures, shows a lot. And we should be able to decode this, to interpret these signs of non-verbal communication. And fortunately or unfortunately, non-verbal communication is the 70% of communication. And we'll be back on this. So we should see also the family. The family, which is consists for, as we say in systemics, for men, husbands, ex-husband, a wife, father and mother, and the children. I don't know if I could be persecuted for saying this today with all these gender theories, but all these subsystems, the parents, the couple, and the children, they are in continuous interaction among them. The one influences the other, and this interaction is constant and continuous. And of course, this system of family is influenced by external factors, by the members of the large family, from the grandparents, from uncles, from cousins, from friends, from the work, from the school, from sports group, all other activities that we have in our everyday life. So imagine if I could design here, have a board, design these many circles that between them, the one influences the other. And of course, if you look in the international bibliography to find out which family is the functional family, it's very difficult to find. Maybe you would not be able to find the definition or a description of functional family. You can find millions of pages and articles about different dysfunctions or what a dysfunctional family is, but it's very rare and difficult to find the definition of what functional family is. And mostly when you go to a faculty of psychology, in family psychology, professors say functional family is what is not dysfunctional. So it's very difficult to express what is a functional family. But I will be back to this. So in every family, you can find millions of pages. We have the husband and wife. Let's say a few words about the constitution of the couple. Usually people, they meet each other, and when we meet each other, they create expectations. So when they develop these expectations, I will be with this person and I will receive this and that in any level, in emotional level, in physical level, and so it's mutual. And mostly what happens is, in order to complete these expectations, the two people, they present what we say in psychology, a false self. In order to receive what I think I need, both they express a false self and they say what the other wants to listen, and so the expectations are growing up, and then we have a couple. And then when the expectations are not fulfilled, the couple is in trouble. And we have separations, we have dysfunctions, we have different issues. So to say that generally speaking, contemporary relations in couples, they have mostly superficial relations. The relationship is quite superficial, is based in mutual expectations. And how we can choose someone when we have a low level of self-esteem, when you have a low level of self-knowledge, when you don't know well yourself, how you can choose someone to live in a long-term relation. And people, they choose someone to live with, with very superficial criteria. That's why the most of the relationships are, let's say, politely dysfunctional or relative. And of course, through the time, people they get to know each other, but it is very difficult to cope when you just discover yourself through the relation and you don't have this knowledge before. And of course, we cannot go through this to say how important it is to share the same values, the same beliefs, and so on. So the statistics are not very positive on this. They say, I remember a French psychologist who said they will meet, they will stay together 4.5 years, they'll have 2.3 children, and then they will separate. So this is a bit the story of today's relations, and of course, which loyalties are behind this, which loyalties and principles are behind this trend. People, they used to have relations in a very early age, and when they have some difficulties, they face some difficulties, they leave the relation and they go to another relation. So they have multiple relations until they feel tired emotionally, psychologically, and they decide to start or to create a long-term relation, someone to live with or to have a family, because being a parent makes you feel young, makes you feel, to make a new start. But how on earth they could manage a long-term relationship without having the experience how to hold and maintain such a relationship? Because until the age of 25, 30, people, when they had a small difficulty, they left the relation and they went to another relation. So they didn't have any experience how to maintain long-term relationships. That's why when they decided to engage in a long-term relationship, they don't have the experience and the capacities to maintain it. Because the long-term relationship needs a lot of efforts, a lot of sacrifices, of course. And what happens is, people, they do sacrifices, they do efforts. They're good willing to do the efforts. But in order to receive what they need, they're not bad people, they're not evil people. But they think that if they don't get what they need, they will collapse. So that's why they do, mothers and fathers, or between them, the couple, they do many sacrifices for the one to the other. But this remains in the human level. So every human being is unstable and insecure because they cannot face the challenges of everyday life. They don't know what will happen in the future. They don't know how to manage suffering, illness, physical disasters, the fear of death, and so many anxieties that we have today. So they need someone to find some balance and to overcome their anxieties and their fears. And they are ready to consume everything around them in order to survive emotionally, psychologically, and existentially. Even the church, even the relation with God. We are super consumers because it's the only way that we think that we'll survive, in our way. Voila. So we have two main models of family. We have the family we could say is an open system, and there we have the we take care of ourselves, we take care of our freedom, of our desires, of our hobbies, of our goals, of our ambitions, and we live in a family. But the individual goals are the most important than the we, the needs of the family. So actually, people, they use the family, they stay in the same house, but each one has his life, his goals, as I said, his freedom, his space, or her space. And for example, when something happens important in the family, they seek help and advice for friends, for relatives, and there's no cohesion in open families, in open systems. And then we have the closed systems. The we is the most important, the cohesion between the members of the family. One suffers, all they suffer. One is sad, everyone is sad. One is happy, everyone is happy. If something happens, first they sit down, they discuss among them, they find a solution, and then they announce the conclusion to the others. For example, one of the child of the family goes to university to another city, they don't say anything. First they set up the house, the inscription, then they say, So the information who goes outside from the close family is very limited, because they fear that the equation will be in danger. So they try to remain close and they keep the information inside. The open family, the open system, the personal, the individual needs are a priority, and they seek in their way the solutions, the advices, and the we is not a priority. So the information goes easily outside. Both systems, both type of families are dysfunctional. Open and closed are dysfunctional. So what is functional? The functional is when the family sometimes functions as an open, and sometimes as a close. So the whole thing, the whole knowledge to have a functional family is to have a filter which informations are creative, are useful, and which informations are harmful, so to reject them. This is the criteria that we should have in our families, because not that everything that comes from outside, and that we're in a war, in a battlefield, we receive millions of messages every day. So which messages are useful? Which messages are creative for our relationships? So I can give you an example. We have an issue, the couple has an issue, and the wife consults her sister or her friend, saying, but or her mother, and all this information should be filtered. And to be creative, the external information first to have a solid relationship between the couple. If the couple has solid relationship, then they can choose what to take and what to reject. If the relation between the couple is not stable or is dysfunctional, then what we see is what a very famous psychiatrist, Bowen, said is a triangulation. People, they try to find someone outside of the family in order to deal with, for example, the wife tried to find someone outside of the family to cope with her husband, that he cannot afford, he cannot deal with her husband, so she needs the help of someone else. Or sometimes the mother with the child or the father with the child against the wife, in order to find support. And also in communication, we need to have a balance between I and we. Sometimes we have to keep our personal space, but also to share things with the other members. We can do sacrifices, but if we lose our balance, emotional, psychological balance, by giving everything to the others, then we become a dysfunctional person in the family. But this fusion, emotional fusion, as we say, you don't have to be in the same place. You can live in the United States, and your mother who is in Belgium can call you and hello, how are you today? Yeah, the mother says that, today I had a very big dispute with your father. So if the we is more important than if you're in the States, you feel sad and you're suffering with your mother. So we have to find this balance sometimes to keep our integrity, to keep our balance, and sometimes to share emotions with the other members without destroying our personal balance. So always we have to keep this balance and to know this balance and to have the criteria, very clear criteria. So it's very important to understand the roles in the family, and the roles of each family. They come from our own families of origin, and we have prototypes, stereotypes, how we exerce our duty as husband, as wife, as father, as mother. And of course, we have to identify these prototypes. We should identify these behaviors. We should identify these criteria: what is good, what is not good, what is permitted, what is not permitted. Because we have a new family, and we say, in my family, when we should do this, when a child asks not to go out, a 15 years old girl asks to go out. So the mother says, no, you don't go out, or you come at 10 o'clock. Because when I asked in your age my mother to go out, she said to me, you should be there by 10 o'clock. And the father said, no, in my family we could stay until midnight. So you could stay till midnight. The different stereotypes, different values, but all this should be examined and filtered in the new family, because in the new family we have new people with different needs, with different characters, in different framework. We should take care of what we carry from our family of origin. And there is a whole theory here of a very famous psychologist, Hungarian-American, Montgomery Nagy, who lived in Palo Alto, and he created the theory of intergenerational transmission. And he said that everyone carries a baggage from his family, and this baggage has a content of behaviors, of values, of prototypes, of stereotypes, and we should identify this content and these habits and these stereotypes and these values, and to keep what is useful in the new family and to reject what is dysfunctional and doesn't fit in the family. So it's a whole work to be done before to have a family, to start a family. And also he said that there are some things that we carry from our family of origin that are conscious, we are aware of it, but many that were not aware of it. So we say many times, in our everyday life, we had some traumatic experiences in our family, and sometimes we repeat the same thing in the new family. And unconsciously we say, I suffered, you should suffer too. Or sometimes we have a traumatic experience and we say that we try not to repeat what we lived in the family of origin. Both behaviors are compulsory behaviors, are dysfunctional behaviors, because try to be perfect and to avoid what we lived in traumatically in our family of origin. We don't do it by free choice, but we do it in order not to live this trauma that we lived in our family. Or when we repeat the traumatic experience, the suffering that we lived in our family of origin is also problematic and dysfunctional. So what I'm trying to say to you is that we should be aware of all these criteria, of all these loyalties. We're free to ignore the loyalties. We're free to ignore these criteria, but we're not free not to receive the consequences. And when we try to ignore, each one has his own visions, these loyalties and these criteria, and at the same time we try not to receive the consequences. This is the source of any pathological situation or mental illness, if you like. When we try to avoid what is reality, which are the loyalties. So we should be aware that we ignore the loyalties, we ignore the criteria, but we should be ready to live the consequences. And the contemporary people, we try to find a hack, to find a solution that we could not keep the loyalties, but also not to receive the consequences. And this is the main reason that people are suffering today. Many psychological illnesses, mental illnesses, and they have also dysfunctional relationships. So, just to say few words about the communication with the young people. Young people, they're not adults, but they're not children. And this makes the communication procedure very tricky and very difficult sometimes, very complicated. And of course, we should be ready to identify what is the emotions and what is behind the words. I can give you an example. A young boy comes from school, opens the door without saying anything, and goes and shuts the door loudly without saying anything. So the mother or the father will say, maybe nothing. So he will go through. So the child receives this behavior like ignorance, like neglect, or the parents, they say, the mother will go, what happened to you today? Why are you so sad? Please tell me what happened to you. You look so sad, and we're friends, aren't we? I want to control you, am I? And tell me what happens. So the child feels that it receives too much pressure, so he reacts negatively. So the one way feels neglected and abandoned, and the other way feels too much pressure. So that's why it's very tricky, the communication with the young adolescents. So we should be able to identify which are the emotions, because the child didn't say anything but said a lot by the movement, by the being upset. So we should be able to identify and to try to always to address the issue in a good timing. When a child, an adolescent, come to you to talk to you, is very important, because when a young people comes towards you, comes to listen to you, and it's more preferable that the young people come towards us because they come to listen and they need our advices because they're children. Of course, what makes the relation difficult, the communication difficult, is that they need their independence, but at the same time they need our protection and our advices. So when an adult decides to go to the cinema, for example, to go out, say, okay, I will go out. So the adolescent comes to you, say, I'll go out. So it means that he or she wants the independence and to go out, but needs also your approval. And if we say no, they say no, he reacts like an adult. No, why? I'm independent, I'm big enough to decide myself. But if you ignore him or her, means that you neglect the person because he needs your approval. So it's very complicated, but we should concentrate, to give them quality time to listen, and listening is very important. And what we call it in psychology, active listening. Active listening is not just to understand the words, but the person to have the certainty that you understood him or her. This is the real listening. When I started psychology in 2007, I was here in Louvain-la-Neuve, in Institute of Higher Studies of Psychology, Family Psychology. We had something like 3 or 4 courses about listening. I said, listening, why? So, yeah, because listening is a big part of communication. And listening means that, so I repeated, when the other feels that you listened to her. Well, not just to understand what, because most of the times we say, okay,